This afternoon, we're going to discuss methods for addressing two C's that have been front and center for the better part of 2020, and that's crisis and chaos. A third C, and I don't mean COVID or coronavirus, but centering, is one that we have likely found ourselves looking for ways to perfect while coping with the ongoing pandemic and seeking paths to positively contribute to change in our communities as well as organizations that we find ourselves to be a part of. And we're really thrilled to have Jeanine with us today to provide insight in regards to methods that we may employ to increase our effectiveness as individuals, as leaders, and also as leaders of organizations as we work on centering through periods of crisis and chaos. Jeanine's an accomplished executive coach, public speaker, and project management professional. She's also the founder of Viage Partners. And through the coaching and the professional development programs that Jeanine delivers, she's been able to enhance the lives of individuals and also the productivity of organizations. And she would tell you herself that these are not mutually exclusive. I met Jeanine more than 7 years ago, and I've personally benefited from the work that she does throughout the years. And I'm grateful to not only call her a close friend, but also a confidant. Without further ado, Jeanine, the screen is now yours. Thank you for your time.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's start where we are, living in a VUCA world. The acronym VUCA was created by the U.S. Army War College in 1987. Even so, it is exceptionally relevant today. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. We certainly have it now, and these elements are projected to continue. In the not too distant past, the change cycle looked more like the graphic at the top. Most everyone would focus their efforts on one or two big initiatives, a new system, a new product, and there would be like these common breaks that were built in to recover and gear up for the next one. But as we experience change now, it looks like the bottom. Change is stacked on top of change, with the lines going across are those representing systems and processes that are under continuous evolution. So as a result, the light at the end of the tunnel is always fleeting. Yet time and again, you push hard to reach the light, even when exhausted, right? This coping mechanism of a phrase, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. This phrase is well-intentioned. It's a well-intentioned way to keep your head in the game for a bit longer. Yet it also tends to wreak havoc. In most cases, when we use this phrase, it leads us to put off important activities for far too long. Activities such as developing ourselves and others, getting to the root of the problem, or finding opportunities, getting ahead of the curve so we can better support and lead our teams, being strategic, creative, innovative as it relates to business success, and taking a breather. Breathers, breaks, vacations, they're all necessary to rejuvenate ideas, energy, and motivation. So right now, if you could envision a picture of that long, dark tunnel with that tiny, elusive light at the end, and see yourself running along the tunnel harder and longer to reach the light. And imagine the cost of delaying the important activities will have on the medium to long-term health of the business and yourself. Now, keep that same image of the long tunnel with the tiny light at the end in your mind. Now, I want you to begin visually poking holes along the way to let the light in. This is what today is about, beginning to carve out thoughtful time, especially when under stress, that will make a difference for you and those around you. Now, as we move through the content, look for the small, achievable steps you can take instead of those large leaps or overwhelming ideals that simply do not set you up for success. So the good news is the small steps make a disproportionate larger impact and are more sustainable over time. Now, here's what I've done to help you out. All of the ideas and suggestions in this presentation are options of small steps. Small steps you can incorporate immediately. Ready to give one of the small steps a go? Okay, thank you. Let's experience the number one most beneficial tool we have that can shift our experience within a matter of seconds. Our breath. Our breath is the most accessible tool we have. So wherever you are, sitting or standing, let yourself sink into your chair or into the ground solidly. Straighten your spine tall, push your shoulders back, and your gaze forward. Your eyes can be open or closed, whatever is more comfortable for you. We're going to take 5 deep breaths, and I'm going to lead you through. You can certainly go at your own pace. Okay, so first let's just exhale the air that's currently in our lungs. And now we'll start. Inhale slowly. Deeply fill your lungs. Take in the beauty of the orchid and begin to let go of what happened as you exhale. What happened with your day? Exhaling. And inhale again. Put aside your thoughts of your evening or tomorrow and exhale slowly. Inhale deeply again. Notice the depth of your breath. Exhale and feel the release or the resistance. For number 4, inhale. Notice any sensations or thoughts that are coming up. And see what happens to them as you exhale. Now, one more time. Inhale. And exhale. Okay, and just take a moment to come back into the space, breathing normally. And we're going to launch the second poll right now. And so here's going to be the poll questions. Please respond with what you noticed during exercise. Okay. And as the poll results are coming in, I'm going to talk about what's happening in the brain. So the prefrontal cortex, this is a center of our brain. The prefrontal cortex is our higher brain. This is our center of intellect and where we access data and reasoning. Yet when we're faced with a stress trigger, our reptilian brain, also known as the amygdala, takes over to protect us from danger. So it steals those brain cells. So thinking back to primitive times where this was essential, when this happens, we're in the fight, flight, freeze reaction. And when we take deep breaths, like we just did, we send those brain cells back up to the prefrontal cortex, hence restoring our ability to think and act more effectively. Okay. Jenny, are we ready to share the results? Okay. Here we can see the majority felt a calm coming over with each breath. A couple people had trouble letting go and noticing the difference from the start to the end. Every single response is valid. They may differ for you from day to day, and when used more regularly, you can begin to see a shift in your capacity. The key is really noticing what is happening and then working to move through it. Okay. This is a form of centering. This is a form of centering that you can do anywhere. Even in meetings, you can take a less pronounced deep breaths. I like to call them stealth breaths while staying in your seat, or you can step out into the hall or away from the video for a few moments. Okay. So it doesn't take skill or training, but it does take thought and action. This is going to hold up for all of the centering methods I'm sharing with you today. They don't take skill or training. They do take thought and action. You have to condition yourself to reach for the tool so that it can work for you. So in exploring ways to present centering to you, I came across the definition of decentering, which is an interesting place to think about. The decentering is to cause to lose or shift from an established center of focus. The word distracted comes to mind when I read that. Like just out here, like away from. Especially to disconnect from practical or theoretical assumptions of origin, priority, or essence. This is really about unclear priorities or not honoring those priorities or your values, and could even be that disconnect with who you are versus who you want to be. So when you're centered, you are focused on your priorities and who you are or who you want to be, and you're acting in accordance. Centering connects your instincts, your feelings, and your thinking. So I like to think of that as your gut, your heart, and your head. So it brings you to your core, allows you to balance all those elements and use it to work for you. It brings you into the present. In the present, you can access those past experiences and the future hopes and goals from a neutral place, not a place of gloom and doom because, oh, remember the last time we did this? It really didn't work, or that over-optimism that can sometimes get you in trouble when you're not looking at all the possibilities that could happen as you move forward. And centering quiets the destructive internal and external noise that we have become so accustomed to hearing. So a quieting of the stimulus is important. And a little bit later, we're going to talk about the difference between quieting and silencing. Okay. So if this is what centering does, then here are some of the benefits. Whereas centering may not lead to the solution, it may help you admit that you don't know. And then you can seek to explore the options. And we all know how hard it is to admit when we don't know something, even if it's just to ourselves. But this is a starting point, and it's really beneficial because it also prevents you from plowing forward. Well, it may prevent you from plowing forward, fixing one issue without regard for how it might impact others. other tasks, other projects or initiatives, or other people. And it may help you realize that you got worked up for no reason, because you already know how to solve the issue. So when you have these benefits, these can lead to you to make better choices on how to move forward, which will help you come across as more capable and confident, which will lead to better engagement among your team members and the stakeholders. And all of this saves time. It saves precious time. So keep in mind, centering can be beneficial across the entire range of experiences. This is from a pandemic to a job loss, to homeschooling, to business activities, risk occurrences, professional day-to-day, and any number of personal scenarios that are a part of the landscape of life. All right, although I'm really not one to pat myself on the back, but I thought you should know that I received a very, very compelling award many years ago. First place in the Reacting Queen category. Yes. About 20 years ago, and just a few months after I agreed to move from marketing to lead technical teams in new product development, I ran into one of the VPs at the coffee station. And he casually asked how everything was going. And in a moment of total weakness, I said, I didn't know what I was getting into. And as I'm kicking myself for verbalizing that out loud, he looked at me unfazed. And he said, I didn't think you did. He took his full coffee cup and he walked away. I was in the midst of leading 2 of the first outsourced development projects with 2 different Asian companies. My team was comprised of at least 3 cultures and 5 locations, with a 14-hour time difference between my most West and my most East team members. Everyone was using the phrase turnkey for these projects, which to them meant easy. But quickly I realized there was nothing easy about being the first to run such projects, or maybe the second or third or fourth, as everything seemed to go wrong. And I was continuously picking up the pieces and putting them back together, one after another. So right after that run-in with the VP, I went directly to talk to my manager. And at the time, I told him what happened. Without missing a beat, he said, Jeanine, we're not looking at what goes wrong, we're looking at how you recover. After the shock wore off, I realized that the company was at least accepting, if not satisfied with the rate of progress. Maybe even very satisfied, as I got a raise and a promotion shortly thereafter. So in part, this exchange stirred up my interest in what it takes to allow others to develop. At the time, I felt supported in that no one was blaming me. And even if I was learning the hard way, I was allowed the time and the space to learn and grow and become a master problem solver. That's a nickname for reacting queen or king. And I'll bet there are some other award winners amongst us. After wearing the crown with pride for a long time, I grew weary under its weight. and the franticness of constant problem solving, a constant flow of people coming to me to fix issues, which I did. Little by little, my head lowered. My balance grew unsteady. When no one was looking, the crown started falling off. And I ended up tripping on that crown. And it was painful. This pain started my quest to get ahead of the curve, to curtail the storms that were swirling around me, maybe even because of me. So Jenny, if we can take a look at the results from the first poll, I bet you thought I forgot to share these. What comes first, the crisis and chaos or the reacting? Okay. All right, so the majority are yes. We tend to think of reacting more as an output. An event occurs and we take actions. Whereas this is true at least some of the time. This thought process keeps us justifying our reactions and keeps us stuck in a cycle that could be more productive. One of my greatest findings was that reacting is both an input and an output to crisis and chaos. Meaning that well-intentioned action that we take may lead to more crisis and chaos. This is where the circular reference comes in. This crisis causes actions that cause more crisis and chaos. When we want to calm the storm, which sometimes seems like a never-ending weather pattern, it's important to think of our reactions as an input to the situation. These inputs will either grow or shrink the severity of the event. This thought pattern gifts us with more choice and control in trying situations. This is a perfect time to talk about the second method. This is a concept that my corporate clients tend to connect with quickly because it directly gives an alternative to reacting, which can be nearly impossible to see when we are typically getting rewarded for reacting. Even though it's not written in a job description or leadership manual, how fast you react or reacting has become an expectation that is rewarded handily within the corporate environment. Yet it is exhausting and largely counterproductive to progress. So one of my clients, we'll call him James, was recommended to work with me by their manager because James had a lot of potential. He was knowledgeable and made a lot of contributions, yet he was known to have a fiery persona. During our first session, I introduced the concept I'm about to share with you, and it changed the trajectory of his career. His behavior built on this concept introduced in our first session has been the foundation for his growth. The foundation that allowed his greater potential to be seen by himself and by others. In 3 years, he's had 3 promotions. And the latest one is a coming to life of the very job description that he envisioned, wrote up, and proposed to his company. He still reflects back to the conversation that started it all. It went something like this. And please play along. Say the word react out loud. And say the word respond. And once again, say the word react and respond. Think about what you notice. You may have noticed react is shorter and harsher, and respond is a teensy bit longer and smoother. When you react, it's an automatic pinging back. Bing, bing. When you respond, you take a moment to absorb some of the force. It's as if you're catching a ball. You have the time to like reposition your hands and then throw or bounce or roll the ball in the direction that makes the most sense to set it up for success, thereby not exasperating the chaos. This doesn't mean slow. It means deliberate. It means that even a small, thoughtful absorption period can make that disproportionate positive impact that I've been talking about. It can make the difference between bringing others along and having to do it all yourself, or between setting off a series of busy actions and create that the busy actions that create more turmoil and doing the actions that make real progress. And it can make the difference between feeling frantic and uncertain versus confident and in control. When you experience a stress trigger, condition yourself to think, respond versus react, or respond instead of react. That is method 2. Now let's move on to the categories of centering. In my experience, there are 2 categories of centering. The first form is in the moment. We're going to call this situational centering. When something has happened and one of your triggers has been set off, this is when you use situational centering. Like when you find out one of your team members did the exact opposite of what you agreed to just the day before, or you received a notice telling you that the company you applied to is moving in another direction, or there's a risk that occurred that threatens to derail your project. Situational centering is what I do when I feel lousy, when I can feel the frustration and the physical pressure within me building as a result of an event or a person or some other occurrence that triggers that heat in me to rise. For others, instead of heat, they may experience a cooling sensation that tends to lead them to retreat or avoid action. Situational centering can help temper an exaggerated hot reaction and or activate a more cool passive one. Think about your typical reaction. Do you heat up or cool off? The second category is proactive or preventative centering. This is the type of centering I do when I feel fine or good. It's a more regular practice that over time has an effect on our situational responses. When I work with clients, this includes topics such as values, strengths, and removing barriers and tension that are getting in the way of leading themselves and others more effectively. So whereas today we're focusing mostly on situational centering as a starting point, I want to provide you with the encouragement to begin to further explore the second category of proactive centering. In doing this, I want to share misnomers and a story from my early centering process. First, the story. In my mid to late 20s, I took a 6 or 8 week meditation class that my gym was offering. Each week, I remember the instructor saying, quiet the mind. He said, push the thoughts away. Let them flow past you like a river. I was such a type A personality. It felt impossible. The more I tried, the more the thoughts came. My mind wasn't quieting, and I thought I was doing it wrong. When I did it on my own outside of class, it was more of the same. Thoughts, more thoughts. It made me feel incompetent at a time when I was looking to build confidence and calm during a career growth burst. At the time, I didn't know anyone else who was meditating, so I stopped meditating pretty much as soon as I began. Yet my need for calm and confidence didn't stop. So my exploration continued, and it involved other activities. You might be surprised to hear that training for triathlons and playing racquetball were part of my process. They were effective because they shut off my work thoughts. There was no room for them when I was trying to figure out how to swim in a lake with hundreds of other people, or when I had to work around 1 or 3 other people in a racquetball court. These activities refreshed me and helped me counteract the looming burnout. I count these as my most surprising and unconventional forms of centering. They were an important part of my journey to get closer and closer to my core. Your experience will not be a straight line. Explore your options. If something doesn't feel right for you using one method, dig deeper. Two tips. One, dig deeper. It might be exactly the method that you will benefit from the most. Or use another method. Whatever you do, don't abandon yourself. Now, after we talk about methods 3 and 4, then I'll get to those misnomers that I mentioned. 3, the neck centering method takes as much effort as the breathing exercise. Okay, maybe just a little bit more, but it's very accessible. I call this physical perspective taking. You can also think about it as poses, physical poses. So the first one is you're at your desk, something is triggered, move to a different chair. Go sit on the other side of the desk. Sometimes I could even say stand on the chair. What has changed? What can you see now that you didn't see before? The second one gives you a different perspective. This is called legs up the wall. This is really intended for rest and restoration. So we've all got a floor and a wall that you can lay on the floor and put your legs up the wall. And the recommendation is to stay there for 5 to 15 minutes and just allow yourself to restore. And then the third one is superhero. This helps you understand what it feels like to come from a perspective of strength. This is a grounding and strengthening pose. It can really help you remember what it's like when you feel in control, when you've got the way forward that's clear. Physical perspective taking is another way to center, which can bring clarity to your thoughts and actions. And who experiences meeting fatigue and/or challenges with focus? It was common when we were mostly working in the office, yet now with remote work, it seems even more prevalent. What if I told you I had a method to specifically combat this meeting fatigue? You'd be all ears, right? Well, this is about being all nose because it's the use of scent. With more people working from home, this is even more feasible to utilize. Scent is very powerful. It is our first sense to be developed, and it is the only one that is active when we're in the womb. When we take in scent, the receptors in the back of our nose send it directly to our brain. The use of essential oils has become more and more prevalent, even in medical facilities. The nice thing about essential oils is they don't have the chemicals and additives that other air freshening and fragrances have. So there's been a lot of studies done on essential oils and their ability to reduce stress and fatigue. Now, there's a lot of different scents to choose from. So I'm going to give you a few ideas. For uplifting and energizing, peppermint or citrus, like a lemon or an orange, those are a great place to start. And then if you're looking for more focus, you might look to a sandalwood or a grounding or balance blend. And a lot of people like lavender for relaxation. So how do you use them? Well, when I have meetings back to back all day, this is the method I use to keep myself as fresh for my clients at the end of the day as the ones that take place in the morning. I keep a small vial of peppermint oil on my desk or in my bag, and when needed, I can discreetly take a waft, and it does the trick to reset and re-energize me, and it doesn't leave a big fragrance in the air. That's what I call it. It's just my secret weapon. Now, if you are in a place you don't mind having a little bit more of the scent, you can take a drop, put it on your palm, and go ahead and circle it. And if you had this, you'd be smelling a lot more. And just the effort or the motion of putting your hands together, you're bringing yourself back to your center. And I've placed this perfectly in this webinar when I'm starting to get fatigued from talking so much. So that's helpful. The third way is to diffuse it into the air. Diffusers are easy to find. You may even already have one in the house. So you put water in the base, add 4 to 6 drops, put the lid on, turn the power on, and it will diffuse. Some of the diffusers will diffuse for your entire workday. Regardless of the scent and the way you use it, the most important piece is actually reaching for the scent. For me, as soon as I reach it, I already feel better. So separate from the actual scent, that reconnects me, starts to say, okay, all right, I made the step, I noticed the trigger, I'm taking the action, I'm back. Okay, we've covered 4 of the 5 methods: the definition of centering, the benefits, 2 categories of centering. Now let's talk about some of the misnomers I've discovered during my own exploration. And the intent is to cut down on your hurdles and questions that may come up along your journey. Okay, so meditation is one way to center, but centering does not equal meditation. Centering can be done quickly. As we've experienced and talked about today, realizing the benefits of quick centering may lead you to longer duration experiences for enhanced strengthening of your center. I said we'd get back to the difference between quiet and silence. Well, instead of silence, think of it as quieting. Use the noise, the indecision, the tension, the itchiness, and the thoughts that will not recede to inform you of what is really going on. And then you have to move toward the noise in order to move through it. And over time, you may just find that this process gets shorter and quieter. Okay. Allow for variances from day to day, method to method, and use them to inform yourself. Really, there's zero training required to begin a centering practice. What I'm providing here today is guidance, some instruction, minor, and a lot of encouragement to help you take those first steps forward. Centering can be immensely comfortable and enjoyable. And even if there is some discomfort, like you may have experienced resistance in your breathing, or emotional releases are also common, it should never be physically painful. So keep that in mind. Of course, there are benefits to practicing centering every day. Yet using it some days is better than not using it at all. There are many methods that you can utilize. It's a very personal choice as to what method works for you. You may find yourself using different methods depending on the day or the environment that you're in, and also over the evolution of your centering practice. So although I gave up on my initial go with meditation, I circled back around and now I do meditate and I can realize those deeper benefits that it provides. Of course, figuring out these misnomers definitely helped my process, and I hope they shorten your learning curve and give you that extra encouragement to move forward. And now we're going to go to poll 3, which is just take a moment to reflect on what misnomers you previously held that have been alleviated for you today by answering this poll.
Hey, Jeanine, it's Kevin. While we are getting responses to the poll, I was just going to ask, do you find that there are certain times of the day or perhaps days of the week that you set up a schedule for yourself to kind of refresh on a regular basis, or do you find that there are really just triggers that come up throughout the day and it kind of mounts and then you make time to really center? How do you address that and you personally?
So if you having a schedule or regular time frame day, that would be falling under the proactive category, and I absolutely recommend that. I use a series of different methods. It would be in the morning if you do a little breathing or a little bit of yoga. You can use some of this to bring yourself more into that proactive space. The time of day, I really do feel, especially when you're starting out, you have to find what works for you. So there's not one prescribed method that I recommend, but absolutely a regular practice and realizing that it only takes 3 minutes, or maybe reconnecting your thoughts. It's at least that starting point to get you going.
Excellent. And then have you found any verses or books to be useful for you as you have been venturing into this space over the years?
I read a lot of different topics. I'm definitely exploring of all the different traditions from a spiritual perspective, but also from a business perspective, and trying to blend the two. So whereas there are a lot out there, what I would say is if someone's looking for something, to start looking and then center themselves before they do it and see what they're drawn to.
Excellent. All right. Do you want to share the results of the poll now?
Yes. Let's share it. Okay. So the leading one is that it's difficult. Yeah, so we've definitely talked about that, trying to dispel that a lot today. Okay, so the key here As again, all of these are valid. I've experienced these and a couple of more. So it's really just about taking that time to reflect and see what might get in your way and how can you move through. On to the fifth method, and in the home stretch. So when I travel, I feel the closest to my center. The level of judgment lessens, the degree of freeness expands, ideals bubble up from seemingly everywhere. My patience and understanding grows, and the path forward is very clear. I never arrive home exactly as I left. Through the years, I've learned that neither I nor you have to go far from home to realize these benefits. All we have to do is get outside. The fifth method to calm the storm is to take a walk outside. There's a lot of history and research on the benefits of nature, especially in Japan. They have so much of their forest land is dedicated to their practice called Shinrin Yoku, which is called forest bathing. Now, forest bathing is time in the forest letting all of your senses immerse in the experience. They found that 2 hours in the forest is as restorative and beneficial as any longer period of time. And of course, then if we can say, well, even a shorter period of time is beneficial, that's certainly been my experience. So some of the benefits: reduces blood pressure, lowers stress hormones of cortisol and adrenaline, improves concentration and memory, lifts depression, improves energy, boosts your immune system, is a sleep aid, improves your mood. It's really incredible the impact that nature can have on us. And certainly if you can't get outside, bringing some plants inside and maybe diffusing more nature scents like pine, which is supposed to have immense benefits. There's a beautiful book. This is one book that I'm going to share. It's on forest bathing. It's called Forest Bathing, and it's by Dr. Kingley, Qingli. And in here, this just has a lot of information about the benefits of nature. There's a lot of studies referenced, such as that it can boost problem solving and increase creativity by 50%. And that looking at the natural fractal patterns can reduce, those are patterns that occur in nature. So in flowers and snowflakes can reduce stress by as much as 60%. Now the book, and purists would say to go it alone and leave your technology at home. Walk slowly. Notice the intricacies of nature. This is a fabulous way to go about taking a walk. And I've also found there's a continuum. So if you want to have a quiet walk outside on your lunch break in the morning before you start your day, that's works really well. Walking with someone, having meetings while you're walking. I do some coaching sessions while my clients are walking. Taking preparation. I did a lot of my presentation preparations while I was walking. So there's a lot of ways that we can do activities by ourselves and with other people in nature that bring us back to our center. Okay. Going for a walk outside can combine internal and external exploring, noticing, and listening. These are the next level leadership skills to take into the workplace. Okay. So now we are going to talk about how to initiate your practice. This is the last piece really for today. And the first step is to buy into the concept of centering, to buy into the benefits and the possibilities that can result. The next step is to identify your stress trigger or triggers. You probably know some of these off the top, and others may require you to begin paying more attention because they've just become a super automatic part of your day. And let's get more specific. So take down some notes here. What events trigger you? For me, the word turnkey still triggers me. So that's one of my triggers. What events trigger you? What behaviors trigger you? What people trigger you? Now, earlier we talked about heating up or cool down. So really think about what your typical reaction is. Do you heat up or cool down when you're under stress? And does your reaction vary, or is it consistent? Knowing your triggers and reactions is key to begin reducing their hold on you. The next step is to notice when your trigger has been set off. This is so important. So notice when it's been set off. The quicker you can do that, the better off you're going to be. And then prepare. You can prepare in advance. So if you know you're going to have a meeting with so-and-so in a couple of days, you can prepare for that in advance. So you're going in and having a little bit more strength as you go into that meeting. Then choose and use your centering method. So today we've talked about breathing, respond versus react. We talked about physical perspective taking, the use of scent, and the use of nature. And of course, you can choose your own method if you know of something or you want to explore something beyond that. And then pay attention. Pay attention to what happens when you come from a more centered place. Does the interview go better? Is the team meeting more productive? Is the discussion with your significant other or your children more enjoyable? And then always learn and adjust as you go. In coaching, one of the key concepts is to meet the client where they are and then raise them incrementally. This also applies here with your own centering practice. Meet yourself where you are and then incrementally experience the benefits over time. When you come from a place of strength from your center, you're able to lead yourself more effectively, which is akin to calming the storm and acting with more confidence. Thank you.
It was wonderful, Jeanine. Thanks so much for all this insight and for bringing light to the concept of centering. I think that so many of us go through our days, and days lead to weeks, and weeks lead to months and quarters and years, and we don't spend time effectively centering. And some tells that I have are physical, and I've had individuals I've worked closely with over the years share with me that at certain points they can tell when I'm reaching a point where I need to spend some time centering, because my leg will start to shake. And so we'll be standing and talking, and in my mind, it's kind of like the concept has already been thoroughly addressed or exhausted and ready to move on, but I haven't given those around me time to truly get through it themselves. And so I've worked on, number one, not showing that physical tell, and then number two, in a way, mentally going into that other chair you're talking about from a spatial perspective, and taking time to really understand where they're coming from, as opposed to being, in my mind, steps ahead of them. So this is great. And I'm also a practitioner of get out of the house, get out of your office, and use that time away from that space that you do your work to really get yourself free from the thoughts that can consume you when you're sitting still and idle. So this is great. I love getting outdoors. And one of the questions that we had come into us was that there was a question about whether or not there is any kind of support for benefits of ocean or white noise, sounds of waves, to kind of help when you can't get out of an environment or out into the outdoors. Any thoughts or comments on that?
What I say is, if you've heard it and it sounds appealing to you, then go ahead and give it a try, explore it, and see if it works for you. Again, it is very personal. Like, there's a number of other ways, like a guided meditation. I've explored that in the past. That's not one that resonates for me, but I know plenty of people that it really resonates for them. So I believe that that's the essence of really coming from your center is you're drawn to something. Go ahead and move towards it and explore it and see if it's going to give you the benefits. It's kind of like taking away all of the advice and what works for everyone else, and really tuning in to find what works for you.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, well, that wraps up our program. One of the things I wanted to make sure we convey to everyone is that the individuals that we invite into the Catalyst community to deliver webinars, we also, to thank them, make a contribution to a charitable organization. And so, Jeanine, if you wouldn't mind just speaking briefly about the charitable organization that you've chosen, I'd appreciate it.
Yes. I've chosen the Ladies of Virtue, which is an organization. It's non-for-profit that operates on primarily the south and west sides of Chicago. They work with girls from the age of 9 to 18. They teach them life, leadership, project management skills. They're getting into some STEM programming now, and they're also doing some COVID response. So it's a very timely as well as they're getting out into the community. The founder is just inspired for this kind of work, and I know that every dollar that goes to this organization is really well utilized. So I thank you for doing that, Kevin. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you making time to deliver this to the Catalyst community. And I know that you're a very talented executive coach, and there's so much more that you can kind of impart upon us. And so we'd love to have you back another time in the future. But really, truly, for everyone that's interested in connecting with Jeanine, please don't hesitate to contact her directly. She really is talented in the field that she's in, and she will absolutely help you move things forward personally, as well as bring that into your workspace to help those around you continue to move things forward and be a productive organization of people together. So thank you so much for your time. Like I said earlier, we will make sure that the webinar is posted on both the Viage Partners website as well as the Catalyst Group website in the next few business days. And can't thank you all enough for just being a part of our community. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to Kevin and Jenny and Jennifer. Jennifer and Julie. Julie and Jenny. A lot of J's here. Jeanine, Jenny, and Julie that really helped together. It's been a pleasure working with the Catalyst Group.
Fabulous. Well, thank you all again. That ends our program for today, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Take care.